for?
No one signed up.
Oh, good.
594, authorize a contract with SAP Public Services, Inc. to provide implementation consultant services for the Enterprise Business Solution Project.
Please call the vote.
Adams?
Aye.
Leonard?
Well, these are the kinds of issues that haunt those of us up here more than anything, but they happen. I mean, they happen. They're the real world. They happen in the private sector all the time. They don't get the notoriety they do when they happen to us, rightfully so. So for me, the issue is always not so much that these kinds of incidents occur, but how do we manage them? How do we react to them? And I have to tell you, Ken, I think your reactions have been perfect. I think you have handled this professionally. You have assumed responsibility where appropriate and assigned responsibility where appropriate. So I find your reactions to have been credible, to have served all of us well. And I really don't have, I mean, there's a cost overrun, but I don't have a lot of issues with how this has been managed at all, other than obviously just wishing it didn't happen, but it just happens. And so I really appreciate the work of you, your staff, how you approach this, and I have high confidence in your high confidence that this is going to get done. So thank you very much. Aye.
Saltzman?
Well, in the interest of fairness, I will point out my strong concerns about this now becomes the largest sole source contract or no bid contract in the city's history. Many of you will recall several weeks ago I was raising the same concern about the contract for the Sophie Island Bridge as being a no bid contract. Well, this dwarfs that, and given ordinary circumstances, I certainly would not approve a no bid contract of $11.5 million. But I do think these are not ordinary circumstances. I think the case, as Commissioner Leonard has said, has been handled by OMF, all of you well and responsibly, and I believe this is clearly, and it's also a fixed fee, but clearly a path to successful implementation of the new enterprise business system. So I will, like I said, I will support this, but I don't do it easily. Aye.
Potter?
Well, I think this has been a difficult issue for the entire city. But in terms of trying to backtrack and to figure out what we could have done differently, I think that we have done the best under the circumstances. As Commissioner Leonard pointed out, often in the private sector, these things occur with little or no public attention. But when they occur in a public setting, I think we owe it to the public to explain what we've done, what we're going to do in the future, and that that the project will be completed in a timely manner. So I do appreciate the work of OMF, appreciate the work of the committee, and the forbearance of the taxpayers who pay for these things. So I vote aye. Please read item 593.
Amend contract with Pacific Consulting Group, Inc. to provide quality assurance services for the Enterprise Business Solution Project.
OMF staff have described this issue. Is there anyone signed up to testify on this matter?
No one signed up.
Okay. Please call the vote.
Adams?
I should have asked, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Before we vote? So how frequently will you be coming back? So this is on the issue, not this particular project, this particular ordinance. How frequently will you be providing updates to your commissioner in charge and to those of us on council?
Commissioner Adams, I typically have this as a standing agenda item on each of the agendas with your offices when I brief council individually. I expect I will continue to do that. This is a very high priority project and one that I'm sure interests all of you. And so at least once a month, you'll be hearing from me on how we're doing. And we certainly will be happy to provide more information if that's the interest of your offices.
If you could in writing, just in addition to that in writing, say whether we're on revised timeline, on revised budget, I think that'd be useful too.
We'll do that.
Aye.
Leonard?
Aye.
Saltzman?
Well, I do want to, this is for our quality assurance contractor, Pacific Consulting Group, excuse me. I think they've been doing a great job. And I just want to say to Commissioner Adams, and others, I've asked to receive their monthly report, which is very informative. And, unfortunately, lately, they've been raising red flags too much, but I think they're doing a great job. And I would hope if any future point you're back here before us on the EBS project, that there will be a representative of the quality assurance contractor here too. But I think they're doing a great job, and pleased to vote aye.
Potter.
Aye. Please read item 590.
Authorize revenue bonds for Enterprise Business System Project.
Is there anyone signed up to testify on this matter?
No one signed up.
Okay, it's a non-emergency and moves to a second reading. Please read item 591.
591, authorize South Park Blocks urban renewal and redevelopment bonds.
Staff?
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. I'm Eric Johansson, the Debt Manager in the Office of Management and Finance. This ordinance authorizes the issuance of urban renewal and redevelopment bonds for South Park Blocks urban renewal area. You may recall that the last date for South Park Blocks to issue bonds is July 23rd of this year. Approval of the ordinance will allow us time to sell and close the bonds prior to the area's expiration date. In addition to authorizing new money, this particular ordinance also authorizes the refinancing of any outstanding South Park Blocks bonds. Based on the recommendations of the Urban Renewal Advisory Group, the proposed bonds will be structured such that all of the debt for the district, both outstanding and proposed, will be repaid by fiscal year 23-24. The amount of new money bonds to be sold will depend upon interest rates at the time of the sale, but we expect that it will realize about $35 to $40 million for new projects in South Park Blocks. Bonds are expected to be sold in late June and close in early July. Bank of America and Citigroup are co-senior managing underwriters of the negotiated sale. I'd be happy to take any questions.
So what are the bonds funding?
A number of projects that have been or will be approved in the South Park Blocks budget. I can't speak to the particulars of
Is it
those.
typical
right
for us to authorize bonds before we've identified the project?
Oh, we have identified those. I think it includes some Section 8, Section 8 acquisitions and things like that.
Keith Witkowski, Portland Development Commission. Most of the bonds are going to be invested in a number of the Section 8 preservation projects that were identified by the Urban Renewal Advisory Group. There's also resources going to rental and preservation housing, and I think there'll probably be some projects associated with Portland State University. My understanding was today was the discussion and the vote will be next week. We'll have this afternoon when we meet with City Council serving as the Budget Committee to go into, to the extent you want to, basically each and every line item for all the urban renewal areas so we can get much more in-depth on South Park Blocks as well at that time.
Right, but that is in the context of the budget, but we're voting on authorizing bonds that I'm assuming are paying for specific projects. And I think I've asked this before as well, but I'd like to see, for instance, if the bonds are $5,660,000, obviously that's a figure you came up with to reflect specific projects, right?
In this particular case, because this is the last opportunity for the district to issue bonds because of the expiration date, the size of the bond issue is being driven also by the revenues that we project will be available between now and fiscal year 23-24. There are projects to consume all of those revenues, but the actual the sizing of the bond issue is based entirely on the last date for debt service, as well as the revenue stream to support those bonds, and that happens to be about $35 to $40 million.
But as we've had discussions, I know it because I remember having this discussion before, as we've, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I think it is important to make clear here that as we've had policy debates on the independence of the Portland Development Commission, I have been told ad nauseum that your opportunity, Commissioner Leonard, to question what the Portland Development Commission is doing is when you vote to approve bonds. So I've heard that. So now I'm being told, well, you're voting to approve bonds, but we haven't identified what the projects are specifically yet. So, I mean,
but you're not going to vote today, Correct?
This is the first reading. First reading,
You're going to
we'll
vote
vote
next
next
week.
week. That's
So
right.
the thinking was we can get very deeply into all of the projects. I mean, I've got our
I
budget
don't want
in
it to
front
be
of me.
deeply. I just need a line item that adds up to what you're asking me to, that's all.
Right.
And that should come with the first reading, because that's the opportunity to have